San Francisco, Boston, Houston.
Yeah. I mean, hey, location's a huge thing.
That's from high school.
Yeah, I moved during high school. And it was tough. I moved in between my junior and senior year.
Yeah.
Like, it was just hard.
Where did you move?
I was originally living in North Carolina in Winston-Salem. And then we moved here to Nashville in between my junior and senior year. So it was
What high school?
University School of Nashville.
Yeah. What about it?
Actually 3 other high schools. Yeah, RJ Reynolds. Oh, that was my sophomore year. Went to Summit School, like kindergarten through 9th grade. RJ Reynolds for sophomore year. And then my parents told me we might be moving halfway through the year, and RJ Reynolds wasn't going to transfer well, so I went to Forsyth Country and ended up finishing out the year there. So
I went to UNC.
Oh, really?
I grew up outside of Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we do those.
It's such a cool area. Like the whole research triangle out in North Carolina. I need to go back now that I'm like, not just like looking at colleges. But maybe it's incredible.
No, there's a whole lot more that we should be doing.
Oh yeah.
There's just and same.
Yeah, honestly.
Exactly. I mean, come on. Hi, everyone. If everybody can take their seats, please. Brian, let me know when we're on, wherever you are, Brian. Brian is hopefully turning us. Okay. I guess we're on.
This is what we get for being late.
Brian, are we good to go? Are we ready with the Zoom and all the things? Okay, wonderful. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. It is an exciting way to kick off an exciting couple of days for our state's life science associations and the organizations that support the innovation and life science industry across the state. This is pitch day for our Bio10 Scipreneur program. So it is a wonderful opportunity for us to see 16 students, graduate students and postdocs from across the state. And you'll watch these companies, these mock companies, present on real technologies that are coming out of our state's academic institutions. First of all, before I go any further, we'd like to thank Holland & Knight for hosting our event this evening, as well as Launch Tennessee and the many great supporters of Bio10. I also want to thank all of you that are going to be joining us tomorrow for LSTCon all day at the Westin Hotel just down the street. I think we've got a great program set up for tomorrow as well. I am Abby Trotter. I am the Executive Director of Bio10 and Life Science Tennessee. And without any further ado, I need to make sure to recognize Cameron Snow, our for one more day events and membership coordinator for Life Science Tennessee. Thanks for all the hard work that Cameron has put in for this great organization, or for both of these organizations. And he said somebody need to, put out a postcard or something to let everybody know what I'm doing, because just after tomorrow, he'll be joining the state's Department of Economic and Community Development in their government relations office. So we are super proud and super proud of Cam, and super grateful for all the work that he's put in, and for being a true believer in building the life sciences in our state. So thank you so much, Cam. And then I also want to point out Sarah Praneski. She has been working with us for a number of years. She's not going anywhere, so we're excited about that. She is pregnant, but anyway, she does all of our communications and all of our communications work, and is a wonderful partner to me and to the whole organization. For those of you who want to know a little bit more about Biotin, who is actually putting this event on tonight, it's a nonprofit with a focus on entrepreneurship and workforce development in Tennessee. Biotin is aligned with Life Science Tennessee, the industry association that does lobbying, education, and networking events like what we're going to do tomorrow, but across the state. The Biotin Foundation has a lot of new announcements as an organization, including the hiring of one of today's judges or tonight's judges, Carrie Dudek, who is leading Biotin's new life science venture program for Tennessee-based life science startup companies. The program, which was formerly the Life Science Mentor Network, has been redesigned to meet company needs and provide them with more in-depth membership and prepare them for investment. So if you are a Tennessee-based startup in this space and you're interested in learning more about the program, please follow up with me, with Carrie. You can still follow up with Cam for about 36 more hours, or Sarah, or even Brian here. Glad to talk to you about that program. And speaking of Brian, special thanks to Brian Behringer for leading this amazing Scipreneur program. He has really built this from something that got started many years ago, actually out of Vanderbilt, with some Vanderbilt graduate students and postdocs. And then it moved to St. Jude and to UT and Memphis. And Brian was like, you guys are really onto something. If we give it a little bit more structure, I think it could be fabulous. So Brian's done an amazing job in putting it together. So I wish all the teams tonight great luck. Couple of other things, just so you know. For next year, there will be a state advocacy day. It's really important that we get the great resources that we need to continue to build our industry in the state. That is going to be on February 26th. So please mark your calendars and join us right back here in this very neighborhood as we go and talk to legislators on February 26th about the importance of this industry in building and growing the industry across the state. And then also next year, Life Science Tennessee is going to be hosting once again for the second year in a row a really fabulous booth on the trade show floor at Bio. If you've never been to Bio, it's 21,000 of your closest friends, all very interested in building and growing the life sciences in a number of different ways. Some really great sessions, really great trade show floor, and some really great connections. And now, Eric can say this because he was there last year with us, a really great presence in the state of Tennessee. We made a really great impression last year, and we'll do that. We'll do that again. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Brian, and good luck again to all of our teams.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Abby. Yes, even me, I can help you as well. And I just want to say, Cam is I don't see where he went to, but Cam has kind of been helping me do this for the last several years. I think I might miss him the most, although that's a fightable kind of offense to see who's going to miss him the most. So thanks, Cam. This is our last radio, so let's finish it out strong. All right. Okay, so Cam and I and Abby and a lot of other individuals started on a journey this past year called Lab to Launch series, where we were walking around the entire state to promote everything that we're doing with BioT and Life Science Tennessee, but also to entice postdocs and graduate students, those that are in that kind of research and scientific space, to learn about Scipreneur Challenge. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So the Scipreneur Challenge is a program that started 11 years ago. Someone asked me how many cohorts we have. I'm going to guess over 50 at this point, or over 40. We used to run this 2 or 3 times a year. Then COVID happened. We pulled in a bit and started doing a statewide version of this, and we've been doing that for the last 4 years. And it's been very successful. The Scipreneur Challenge is focused on kind of challenging the norm on 3 things. One, that we can take research and commercialize it in the state of Tennessee, and we do that often, and we need to do it even more often and more frequent, and we need to have more commercialization. And over the last couple of years, you haven't noticed the ecosystem has completely blown up with resources and people working on commercialization. I mean, blown up in a great way, disrupted. All right. So now we have a lot of people working on the same space. So challenge that. The other challenge is that we can teach a postdoc how to be an entrepreneur, which I can tell you that's actually the easiest of the three challenges. And I'll tell you why in a minute. And the third challenge is that we can get some of these postdocs to move on to the next level as an entrepreneur, either with their own research or with the IP that they're coming from our business or our academic partners. So that's how the program is structured. We actually borrow IP from our academic partners. It's our academic alliance. We work with all the commercialization offices, including St. Jude, Oak Ridge National Laboratories, and all the three R1 schools that we have in our country, in our state. We ask them to give us IP that they think is marketable. I work with those commercialization teams. We look at things that have good timing for what could be right now. Sometimes we're on the mark. Sometimes it's pretty early. We're never late, but it's always pretty early sometimes when we do that. That's what we're talking about in research. We allow that kind of what's going on in that research to somewhat inform what we're going to do in our program, where a cohort of postdocs will then turn those IP into business concepts and build a narrative, and you're going to see 3 of those examples tonight. So the third challenge is our most important one. That's the one where we want to have more and more life science researchers and scientists move into the commercialization space and take their research or others' research that they're working on into a space that can be commercialized and marketed. Every year we have a cohort of anywhere from 12 to 16 individuals that give us their time. And the reason I said the second challenge is easy is because we teach things in a similar fashion to what they learned when they probably caught the bug in 8th grade chemistry. To be a scientist, we teach by the scientific method. So when we get in there and start teaching them how to do discovery, that's the same, that's just another word for research. Documentation is important. Theories and hypotheses being set and experimented upon, assumptions being broken down, and a true narrative around facts is built because you've experimented and you've talked to customer after customer after customer to prove or disprove your own thesis, your business thesis around something scientific. So through that program, that's what they learned through this whole time. My hands can get all kind of TED talky a bit, and so since I'm not mic'd, I might hit that again. I apologize. So when it comes down to it, they spend close to 8 weeks in class, 4 or 5 weeks learning the ins and outs and the basics of customer discovery, go-to-market strategies, value propositions, problem statements, solution statements, so on and so forth. And then at the end, they do a pitch. So they work the last couple of weeks on building a presentation. This year, I'm proud to announce, even though we've only done like 40 or so of these, this is the first of one, but not one of the last ones. We are now I-Core certified under the Mid-South Tech Hub. So it is a big, huge achievement for us to take this program and move it into something that's in the NSF pathway that is one of the best de-risking pathway is for life science technologies. If you get all the way through phase 2B, you can really go to town with some investors because you kind of de-risked a lot of what you're doing. This is the start. So from this program, with 20 interviews, they can go and access the next level like Ideator and Spark and the other NSF programs in the Mid-South Tech Hub and keep going to regional and national programs, expanding their ability to get more and more non-dilutive funding along the way. And increasing their ability to move that that research into a commercialization space. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to get started. What we have in front of us is 3 presentations that are going to come up here. We have 4 judges, as we always do. I'm going to allow each judge a few seconds to introduce themselves. And then what will happen is each presentation will happen one after the other. They'll have 7 to 8 minutes to pitch with 8 or so minutes, 8 to 10 minutes to ask questions from the panel. And afterwards, then the judges will deliberate, and then we'll make a decision on who's the winner. Everyone benefits from our prize money in this program, but there's going to be a winner and everyone else. So we get to this because it is a competition. The last thing I want to do is introduce something also that was kind of a first this time, right as he put a bite of food in his mouth. Mark Hilton, Dr. Mark Hilton, if you could stand up, please. Chew and take your thank you. Yeah, poor timing on the food on my part. I should have seen that. For the first time ever, I've had a co-instructor through this program, and he and I have been working with these teams along the way. Is there anything you'd like to say about the cohort or anything about that?
It's been an absolute pleasure working with BioTN through the Scipreneur Challenge. I'm actually an alum of the Scipreneur Challenge myself too, so it's been really rewarding coming back and helping these teams. And I mean, these teams have been putting the work in, like they're the ones that, so I'm really excited for their pitches tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Give him a round of applause. Okay, judges, there's two mics. If you can just turn both of them on real quick, and then Olaf will start with you and then go from there.
Oh, pressure.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Olaf Schultz. I work at Epicenter Memphis, which is Memphis's regional economic development hub. Have been focusing on two major clusters, which is MedTech, which is the traditional 0 to 510 program, which a lot of you have heard about. And then we also focus on logistics. And a lot of what we've centered around is that what Memphis is good at, and we're very proud of it. So I myself have 25 years of medical device experience, worked at large scale startups and et cetera, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Olaf.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jennifer Zachary. I am one of the co-founders and directors of business development for Orion Therapeutics. We are a biotech delivery platform company that enables RNA therapies. And actually, I would be remiss if I didn't explain my background because I was a PhD student at Vanderbilt that competed in the Scipreneur Challenge 2 years ago. So this technology that I'm working for was actually something that I got paired with through that competition. It's how I met my co-founders, and now we've been able to launch this company with a lab site here in Knoxville and a second one in Boston. And very excited to see the presentations today.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carrie Dudek, co-founder and CEO of Upalanos, a therapeutic company based here in Nashville. But more importantly, I'm the director of the Life Science Venture Program. I think Abby did a great job kind of introducing that, but we are a statewide program for life science startups in therapeutics, med device, diagnostics, and really looking forward to hearing everyone's pitches tonight.
Hey everybody, my name is Patrick Clayton. I work with JP Morgan. I appreciate the invite. I'm not a local native of Tennessee, but really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and kind of learn more about this. I work within the Innovation Economy Group at JP Morgan. We focus directly on and only working with life sciences and healthcare companies, VC back, anything from pre-seed, seed stage companies all the way through IPO. So very much in this wheelhouse. My background's actually within tech transfer. I'm a scientist by training. I worked in early tech transfer commercialization for a number of years. So
Awesome.
really excited to listen to this.
Too bad we didn't get you in our course when we were coming around. Okay, thank you, judges. We're going to get started with pitch number one.
Great. Good evening, everybody. I'm Maggie Fye. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I am one of the executives with NeuroSense, and I'm really excited to pitch our technology to you all tonight. So aging. This is something that is going to happen to all of us, and with an increase in age comes an increase with the risk of neurodegenerative disease. And so take, for example, Betty. Betty recently started developing tremors and went to see a neurologist for this. She received medication and a diagnosis. And a couple months later, she unfortunately realized that her medications aren't really working. So she went to another neurologist for a second opinion and found out that she actually has Parkinson's disease. But it cost Betty a lot of time and money to get this correct and accurate diagnosis. It would have been great for this diagnosis to occur correctly the first time. Take also, for example, Steve. Steve has been dealing with his Parkinson's disease for over 3 years now and finds that he has to take medication 4 or 5 times a day. Not only that, but his medication has started wearing off in effectiveness, and also he has been experiencing side effects that comes with taking these medications for a long time. This also costs him time and money, and having to deal with these side effects and think about his disease all the time, taking medications constantly throughout the day. And Parkinson's disease is a disease that affects over 10 million people globally, over 1 million in the US. It increases in prevalence with age and is more prevalent in males and females as well. And it comes with a whole host of symptoms that affect movement and really decrease the quality of life for Parkinson's disease patients. But the real problem lies in the fact that there's approximately 1 neurologist for every 107 Parkinson's disease patients. This places a lot of undue burden on the neurologist to care for all of these patients and decreasing the time that they're able to spend with each patient and really be able to provide one-on-one precision medicine to them. We also find that approximately 1/4 of all patients are misdiagnosed initially, like Betty. And we also see, like Steve, that as the severity of your disease increases, the complexity of the dosing regimen also increases. So at first you may be taking medication 1 or 2 times a day, but with time you're taking medication 4 or 5 times a day. There is a growing market for Parkinson's care. It's projected that there will be over 1.5 million people dealing with this disease by 2030, and this is a market of about $52 billion a year in the US. The same is roughly true for physicians and hospitals, that this market is quite large at about 2.3 billion a year for hospitals and 9.4 million a year for physicians. And so we're really interested in focusing on our market of patients and physicians so that we can alleviate the pain caused by misdiagnosis for patients and having to take medications several times a day, constantly thinking about their disease, and for physicians having to treat a huge amount of patients that really prevents them from giving adequate care to each of them. With that, we'd like to introduce our technology, NeuroSense. This is a proprietary algorithm based on reinforcement learning that allows for fast and accurate diagnosis, real-time symptom monitoring, and has patient and doctor in the loop technology that allows everybody to stay up to date in real time. So what makes us unique is that we're really interested in focusing on this entire ecosystem, not just the patients and physicians, but the hospitals too. So for patients, this would provide fast and accurate diagnosis, again, alleviating those problems for both Betty and Steve, and easy care management. For physicians, this looks like improved care efficiency, as well as higher patient satisfaction as they're able to see more patients and for more meaningful amounts of time. And for hospitals, this looks like decreased costs and greater efficiency overall. At the center of all this is precision healthcare, which allows for us to really treat the patient individually so they get the most out of their treatment regimen. And NeuroSense saves time and money. Our preliminary study found that this might save about $10,000 a year for patients, and the medication would probably work for longer as it allows for the optimal amount of medication to be taken earlier in the disease instead of later. And for physicians, this also saves them a cost of treating patients, about $2,000 a year per patient. And also for hospitals, about $500 million a year. The reason that this can happen now is because we've all seen these advances in AI. So our reinforcement learning algorithm has only been able to come about with these advances. And that, coupled with an aging population and an increased demand for Parkinson's disease management, plus a supportive regulatory environment under the current FDA, we see that this is a really timely opportunity for us to introduce this technology and allow better Parkinson's disease management. Our business model is based on existing technology, so our custom algorithm will be translated into a licensed app for existing wearables like your smartwatch, your Apple Watch, things people already have. Once we obtain clinical evidence and FDA approval, we'll move on to get insurance coverage, making it affordable and ready to use for many patients. And then finally, once we see widespread adoption by providers and patients, we will be able to provide tech support and maintenance throughout. And our competitor, the PKG sensor, is not able to provide all of the things that we are. So although it is a wearable sensor and it senses tremor detection using an accelerometer, much like ours, it is not able to provide the instant feedback that we can, nor can it do diagnostic analysis. It's patient-specific. Ours is patient-specific. It's compatible with existing technology, as I said, and can also track the progression of disease analysis. And so all of this feeds into being able to provide that precision medicine, whereas PKG cannot. Our strategy focuses first on clinical studies, then moving into obtaining FDA approval following that, marketing to providers, primarily in Tennessee to start, and making them aware of the technology that exists so they can tell their patients, followed by patient marketing, for example, through commercials like talk to your doctor about NeuroSense. And finally, along the way, we'll make sure that this is covered by insurance, making it affordable for patients. And throughout this process, we will assess, get feedback, and refine as we go along. Our team is comprised of a variety of individuals, many of us scientists with several years of experience under our belts, and we are also distributed throughout the state of Tennessee, making it really easy for us to capture our market in all major parts of Tennessee, so west, middle, and east. So far, we've filed the utility patent in April 2023, have a publication from 2023 that validates the algorithm and have been conducting interviews with stakeholders to validate the need for this technology. All of this will ultimately feed into our go-to-market strategy and allow for Betty and Steve to live a better life where they don't have to constantly think about their Parkinson's disease, worry about a misdiagnosis, or when their next medication needs to happen. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today, as well as my team. And with that, I will call them up for helping me answer questions. Thank you so much.
Ask a question. So I want to ask kind of on the technology piece, what are you looking at with the symptoms that you're tracking, I guess, with the watch? And how does that tell you what medication and how much needs to be delivered?
Yeah, that's a great question. So more specifics about the technology, of course. So it primarily uses an accelerometer. So much like the ones that we all have in our Apple Watches, this is really built-in technology. It's going to sense for tremors, as well as, I believe, dyskinesia, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. And between those two things, it can detect on a day-to-day basis whether or not more or less medication is needed, which is really critical because typically physicians were found to overprescribe where patients could actually take a little bit less, and that contributes to having side effects down the line.
Yeah. Maybe I can add, like, it can detect both bradykinesia and dyskinesia, which are like major side effects. And given that levodopa, which is main medication used for Parkinson, has a half-life of 3 hours, you can imagine, like, you need to take that medication almost every 3 hours. So having a like really good therapeutic range is of extreme importance for those patients to have a like as less side effects as possible.
And just to add a little bit more on that is the algorithm itself is like based on reward and penalty. So if it's doing good, it gets rewarded for that and from the environment. And once it gets like stabilized, then it gets like penalty for it, like which will help us treat the patients, get the exact profile of the patient to treat them with the precision.
Awesome, thank you.
How long do we have for questions?
10 minutes.
Okay.
7 more minutes.
All right. I want to make sure we don't go over. Thank you. I thought it was really interesting. We've talked before, and as I told you, Parkinson's is very near and dear to my heart. My dad has it. So in terms of the technology, I think it's really interesting. Do you see that the patients are able to respond, like in your questioning with clinicians, that they're able to respond with lower dosing? It sounds like it's the major problem.
Yeah, a primary benefit of this technology is so again, our competitor, PKG, often they have to upload their results of their tremors kind of throughout the day, allowing their physician to make those decisions at a later time. But this technology allows real-time tracking of those symptoms and those tremors. So this allows it will give kind of automatic feedback to those patients, allowing them to see, okay, it's recommended that I take maybe less today or maybe more today. And it will also send it to the neurologist so they can review it if necessary.
So just so I understand the mechanics. So do the patients, like there's a signal to the watch that says, hey, why don't you take less or take more?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And then just along these same lines, because again, familiar with the user, my dad has a lot of trouble with his phone. And so like, how do you plan on having the patient provide that feedback?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it doesn't take a ton of patient feedback, which is great. It mostly is going to track things and doesn't require a ton of, okay, yes, sounds good. It should just give a suggestion, and it really is up to the patient whether or not they take that suggestion, of course, as it is with most medications. But yes, we'll definitely allow the patient to assess whether that is right for them. And as long as they can use an Apple Watch or similar technology, there's definitely accessibility features that go along with those to help with using those technologies. They should be fine. Anything else?
And I think even the neurologist gets it. So even neurologist can see what's the profile of the patient, and if they need to intervene at that point for the patient, they can do it as well.
From a reporting perspective, would this be integrated within EMR for the physicians, or is this something that would be a separate platform that would need to be looked
Yeah.
at differently, separately?
Yeah, so definitely EHR, I believe also, another way of putting that, a big issue with physicians for sure. It's always very complicated. The idea is definitely to integrate with that. So hopefully that app data would send it directly to the EHR and allow physicians to review as needed. Probably also have some minor urgency kind of signals if it is more urgent than others. Luckily with tremor, it's not usually too urgent. So allowing the neurologist to kind of look at those on their own time rather than having to all at once take a look at this long sheet of symptoms that they have and say, okay, maybe you should be taking 3 pills a day instead of 4 now, that kind of thing.
Could I add something? I don't know if you guys can hear. To Maggie's point, I also wanted to add that PKG Health, I am part of the IP1, by the way. My name is Lydia.
Lydia.
Shock me. I was like, wait a minute. Go ahead, Lydia.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's Lydia. I wasn't able to come today. So PKG Health, our competitors have not had a great success in traction in the North America, and part of the reason is because it could not be integrated to the EHS. So that will be also something that we're actively trying to do, because that will give us a competitive edge. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yeah, Patrick actually took my question, but building off of that, that's okay. Building off of that, so does the neurologist need to approve suggested dosage changes by the AI algorithm, or does it just directly go to the patient?
Yeah, so it can ask the neurologist to make those dosage changes. From what we've gathered during our research, it seems that neurologists will usually make a dosage prescription, but allow some flexibility to the patient as far as what their day-to-day symptoms look like. So there is some flexibility there of allowing the patient to make that decision for themselves without having a whole new prescription. So luckily there is a lot of room for, okay, we don't need the neurologist input right away. If they need to maybe go up significantly in dose, as far as like what the actual pill is, that would probably be a different conversation. And then, yeah, lead to probably a physician follow-up, but they would have a lot more time to talk about that, luckily.
I had one more question, sorry.
Yeah.
So in terms of the physician response, what's been the general consensus? Do they, I mean, obviously the data shows that they're overwhelmed, but do they feel that way?
Yeah. Did you want to, you open your mouth?
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, they are actually overwhelmed because they have to, even in just the whole Tennessee, if you consider, there are not many neurologists. And even if there are, the appointments, they're overbooked. And they don't have enough time. So mostly they get 10 minutes. And how much they have to check like 3 months worth of report in that time. And if this technology is already installed, then they can look at it, and we can also provide like telemedicine. Oh yeah, I see this thing has gone up, your bradykinesia score has gone up, or your dyskinesia score has gone up, and that can efficiently say, yeah, I'll just have re-prescribe your medicine, and that will allow your symptoms to go down when that peak of the Parkinson comes up. So you will be also able to not prevent, but see beforehand when will you see the high peak of Parkinson's.
Great,
And
thank you.
I'd like also to add that one of my interviews, the neurologist said sometimes what they see in the chart does not really reflect what the patient is experiencing, because the chart only shows them one point in time of what the person is experiencing, whereas what the person is actually physically experiencing is a whole lot different. So this technology will allow them to see what's going on over many days and allow them to make a much more informed decision.
All right, let's give team one a round of applause.
Thank you all.
Great. It's awesome to see just the kind of the very tip of the iceberg or scratching the surface, or however you want to think about AI technology and how it's going to affect telemonitoring, telehealth, telemedicine through the process. All right, so we'll have team 2 come up here. We have 2 people presenting tonight. Board.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentle people. We are Pan Biologics, and today we are introducing the soybean cyst nematode defense, affectionately known as SECOND. So our goal is to utilize our patented methodology to help soybean plants enhance their natural ability to defend themselves against nematodes. Nematodes are an agricultural pandemic that are spreading across the Midwest where the bulk of our soybeans are grown. And this problem is even more significant than the next 2 largest problems combined, making it necessary that we need to solve this problem sooner rather than later. Traditional methods like chemical sprays are very expensive, and genetic resistant soybean varieties lose their effectiveness. So having a natural way for these plants to repel their predators themselves is really important. If you look towards the bottom of the image, you can see just how devastating that nematodes can be to a soybean crop by all of the black spots that are at the bottom. It's not the easiest to see, but I assure you it's there, and it is not pretty. Even SpongeBob was able to show us how devastating and catastrophic nematodes can be. It's not good. It is a very obvious problem. So our intention is to utilize soybean biochemistry to modify the plasminogen apple nematode, or PAN domain, to allow these plants to use hormones to repel nematodes naturally. This is more fast-acting, cost-effective for the farmers, and will result in healthier, better producing crops long-term. American farmers are among some of the hardest working people out there, laboring out of love for food, family, and country. And nematodes have significantly impacted their ability to do their jobs, having cost them $1.5 billion. That is an obscene amount of money for some of the hardest working people with thankless jobs to be losing due to a problem that we can relatively easily resolve for them. The largest areas that are hit by nematodes include Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, and Indiana, which you can see is where the bulk of our nation's soybeans come from. Pan Biologics can partner with large seed producers to provide a unique new tool for these farmers to deal with these problems on their front lines themselves. Current methods include chemical sprays, which are very expensive, a lot of upfront costs on equipment, as well as they're not always able to solve the problem. Current genetically modified options tend to lose their resistance and don't have a lasting ability to maintain their resistance to these nematodes. And so it is on us to provide our farmers with a unique tool to mitigate this problem and give them the best chance that they have at a fruitful, wasteless harvest.
So why do we need this technology now? The soybean industry is undergoing a major upgrade right now. Soybean processors like Cargill are investing billions in upgrading current plants and building new ones across the United States. The biggest reason that they're building these plants is to shift our economy to the bioeconomy. We want to be able to replace fossil fuels with renewable resources to build common products and feed our livestock. So for example, a great example is a car tire. Your car tire is 8% by weight fossil fuels. Goodyear, the tire company, has figured out a way to replace those fossil fuels with soybean oil. So not only is your car tire greener, but you get improved performance in the winter with better grip. So you're also safer on the road with soybean oil tires. We're also currently dealing with high food costs right now. And in order to stem the effects of inflation, we need to make sure that soybean yields are high to make sure that our nation has enough food for us. In terms of the global market, it's over $190 billion, and the United States makes up about 25% of that market at around $46 billion. It's a big cash crop for us, and we export about $27 billion of it, almost $15 billion just to China alone. Nematodes, unfortunately, are quite devastating, causing about an average of 3.2% loss across the United States, and farmers are already dealing with razor-thin margins. Our target market is Iowa and Illinois. They make up about 25% of our current soybean stock, and they are devastated by the soybean cyst nematode problem. In terms of a farmer's operating expenses, seed alone consists of 12% of those expenses, even when you consider land, labor, and equipment costs. So the current status quo for dealing with these nematodes is crop rotations. A farmer will take soybeans and then grow corn right afterwards. This corn helps replenish nutrients in the soil, but if you have a nematode problem, the nematodes can't eat corn, so they starve them out. But I was talking to an Iowa farmer recently, and he mentioned that he had to plant corn twice in a row. He really needed to starve out those nematodes, and he was willing to take a loss because that second yield of corn has lower yields, and the price of that corn is much lower because of the oversupply from the first season. The current competition are chemical sprays. Unfortunately, they're expensive to buy, expensive to put down in the fields, and there are environmental hazards because if the rain washes it away, it leaches into our waterways. Then there are natural soybean varieties that resist the nematode, but unfortunately, they're slowly losing the battle. Nematodes are learning and adapting and fighting off these natural breeds, and unfortunately, it takes decades to make a new natural breed. So our unfair advantage is that pan biologics can modify any protein with a pan domain, so we can target multiple biochemical pathways to fight off the nematode. And we have papers showing we can target other pests as well, such as fungus and blight as well. And so we have the ability to pivot really quickly. Our go-to market strategy is to license our technology to seed producers such as Syngenta, Corteva, and Bayer. They have the scalability and a distribution network to send these seeds to farmers with thousands of acres of land. We also would work really closely with the University of Tennessee Extension and Iowa State, who are the leading experts in the nematode. They actually have the Soybean Cyst Nematode Coalition, which actually tracks and made that figure at the beginning of this presentation to show how big the spread was. We'd also work really closely with the USDA to make sure that these products are safe for farmers to plant in their fields. Our team consists of Dr. Kuntal D, the founder and CEO of Pan Biologics. We have our resident soil expert, Dr. April Arms, our chemist, Christiana Brantley, our engineer, Dr. Spencer Brown, and myself, the bioanalyst. We have a diverse crew of expertise that can tackle this challenge and help our farmers. In terms of current progress, we've already published 4 academic papers on this technology. These lead to 2 different patents on this methodology. And last but not least, we did a wide variety of customer discovery, talking to farmers all the way from Iowa to North Carolina, and also a variety of university extension professors who work directly with these farmers and understand their problems. With second or the soybean cyst nematode defense, nematodes don't stand a second chance. We are empowering American farmers with the tools to build the new bioeconomy and secure our food stocks. Thank you, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Really interesting. Again, it was cool to see your progression from the last time we talked. So in terms of the go-to-market strategy and the licensure, how common is that right now in this industry?
It's actually very common. One of the people that I spoke with works with AgriCenter, which is fundamentally based in researching different varieties of different seeds that they can sell to farmers. And their process tends to be very similar to the FDA, and it can take a very long time. And I spoke to several farmers who that was one of their biggest issues was they announce the problems that they have, and research on those solutions just get stuck in an academic phase. So working with companies to get this to the farmers more quickly is definitely something that's currently going on that we could enter into the fray with.
So as a follow-up question, is there an opportunity for you to partner with a smaller company instead of a large strategic like that to develop this?
I think we could. AgriCenter itself primarily is based within Tennessee. And so it wouldn't be as large of a jump as to a Bayer or a Syngenta as what that would be. And I think that that would be a very valuable direct pipeline to start at a smaller company that can get it going and then get it into the hands of a larger company to more directly impact more farmers.
Okay, great presentation. I have a question on the technology. Are you modifying the seeds so the farmer's buying the seeds, the plant is protected for its lifespan?
So the technology is the methodology of modification to the protein. And so that can be applied to either a seed or a full-grown plant.
Okay. And then, so you were talking a little bit about the IP, you're saying that this covers the methodology.
Yes.
Do you have any competitors in this space that are doing anything similar to this? I know you mentioned kind of the chemical industry and other areas. Do you have anything close to this?
Not that we know of.
Yeah.
Everything tends to be, oh, it's just resistant, but it fades, like Stephen mentioned, as the nematodes adapt. This is working with the plant's biology itself, and so it's kind of a self-cycling system based on hormone production that'll keep the repellent working.
Yes. And
Sorry,
I just,
go ahead.
sorry, I just want to add, current market strategies for resistant soybean varieties is to genetically breed them. So cross, a mother plant and a father plant and make a baby plant. And that plant will be resistant to the soybean cyst nematodes. However, we're seeing that those resistant varieties are increasingly less resistant now.
Thank you.
What would be the upfront cost for the farmers to implement this as opposed to what they're using now?
So I talked to a few farmers about this, and so already this in terms of the soybean market, the price of soybeans is pretty steady between different types of soybean varieties. So you have like different varieties for depending on what climate you're in, and so on and so forth. Again, it is about 10 to 12% of their operating expenses, and so I'd say. Yeah, I don't have an exact number for you, but they would be, with how devastating the soybean cyst nematode is, especially in Iowa, they'd be willing to pay a little bit extra because it can take out 20 to 30% of their crop.
I would also anticipate it would be relatively comparable to what they're paying now for the seeds that do have the demonstrated resistance, but it'll save them more money in the long run because it will last longer.
And I'd like to point out that with our patented technology, generating seeds or plants that are resistant to soybean cyst nematodes is going to be less timely than breeding new varieties of plants for that resistance.
Really good presentation. I have two connected questions. One would be, and not looking at the papers, have there been validation studies to look at any sort of unintended consequences, changes to growth rate of the plant, product yield? And then the second would be, there's a lot of intended uses of the yield. How would you go about addressing all the different various ways that it's utilized and making sure that modifying this pathway wouldn't have any unintended consequences among the various uses?
So I guess I'll take that question. So there have been research for 4 different plants with this technology, and it does not have a demonstrated difference in growth rate or yields. It's purely helped them resist pathogens. There's 4 plants, the tobacco plant, Arabidopsis, poplar trees, and I can't remember the 4th plant off the top of my head. But in all of those cases, there have been no differences, significant differences in growth rate or viability or production.
And on the regulatory side of things, there's a 3-step process for regulating GMO crops. Mm-hmm. So already on the soybean market, 90% of those crops are already GMO. So there's already established pipeline, and you'd go through the USDA, the FDA, and the EPA. So you have to go through all 3 federal regulatory bodies before it can hit the market. So it'll ensure its safety before hitting the market.
Give them a round of applause. I get amazed every time I see one of these groups present because they didn't even know this technology existed 2 months ago, and now they're defending it. as a business team would. And you can see by the way they answer the questions, they think on their feet, they've done their research, and they're pretty good at even saying, I'll get back to you if I don't have the answer. I think we just saw an example of that too, which is something we see a lot. One thing to say about this technology in particular is the primary investigators formed a C Corp a week before the Scipreneur Challenge started. So this is actually a startup now. He's working in the cancer identification space with his technology. So the methodology actually doesn't transcend into just one space, it transcends across different spaces. Since he had the medical space so well baked, and since agriculture is part of life science, we said we're not going to give you a free pass on your narrative just because the founder and CEO has already built a business narrative around medical. We challenged them to go into the ag space, and you saw what they delivered there, which is a pretty compelling narrative. All right, so pitch number 3. Here we go.
Good evening. Thank you so much. My name is Sam Insignaris, and I was thinking of a way to phrase this, kind of a sheep in wolf's clothing, because I'm not a postdoc. I'm actually a research assistant here at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And when I saw this program, I just couldn't help but reach out to Brian and see if I could get involved. And not only that, you may hear some very similar themes in my talk, as our technology is in the tremor space. So I'm here representing Tremor Watch, and I'm going to talk to you today about the Smart Essential Tremor Stopper. So essential tremor. Essential tremor is a neurological condition that causes rhythmic trembling, usually in the upper extremity is where it starts. And patients a lot of time wind up in the clinic asking, hey, is this a neurodegenerative disease, as we've heard earlier? Essential tremor is actually quite different than something neurodegenerative, and that kind of comes in how the tremor presents. So in Parkinson's disease, you actually have a resting tremor, where essential tremor is an intention tremor. You go to perform an action and you get this tremor. And because of this, this actually winds up affecting more people than Parkinson's disease does. 25 million worldwide, 7 million in the US. And this actually affects 5% of adults 65 and older. So my day, right? I can reach over, grab my glasses off my bedside table, get a drink of water, can drive to work, and come home and have a delicious meal. But a day with essential tremors is constantly frustrating. Anytime you reach for something, you have a chance to spill. You're in the car, just simply turning your wheel. You're not sure where your hands can go and feel confident. And when it comes to even feeding yourself, it can be just so frustrating, constantly tremoring, and you just can't get a break. So people change their habits, they avoid public spaces, and eventually just start losing their confidence. So what are the current solutions? There are medications, but they are very limited. I've listed 2 here, and those are the most commonly prescribed. There are some other off-label medications. I talked to a movement disorder specialist, but once these don't work, there aren't a lot of medical options. These come with their own set of side effects, and even these wane in efficacy as the tremor progresses over time. Now, there are some recent surgeries that have made breakthroughs, deep brain stimulation focused ultrasound that actually just got set up at Vanderbilt, but they're only accessible in tertiary care centers. And many don't want to go through a surgery if they don't have to, or have comorbidities that prevent them from going through surgery. Once they find out that this isn't a neurological degeneration disease, they're just more frustrated. It'll wane, but it'll get worse over time, but do I really need to go through surgery to fix this? So there's some restrictive and weighted devices on the market, even for Parkinson's patients, weighted utensils and some restricted devices, and they're cheap alternatives, but restricting movement just does not equal a functional gain. People just want to be able to do some of the things like I mentioned earlier, and by restricting your movement, you're not really getting to the root of the problem. So our purpose is we want a timely, affordable, and effective solution for these people. The customers should have access to a device that returns their identity to them, helping to manage their daily tasks more effectively and reinstill confidence. So our product SETS is a wearable device that uses electromagnet technology to actively dampen tremors based on magnitude and frequency, enabling individuals with ET to regain independence in the ADLs. So what do we offer? We're lightweight, portable, easy to use. You can see there our first prototype version is just simply slipping over your arm. Can be used with or without medical therapy, is adaptive to a range of tremor intensities, and is quiet. There are no machine sounds, which I'll get to in a little bit. And so we wanted to provide an overall minimally intrusive experience that avoids side effects of medications and surgery so you can get back to normal. So why now? There's a growing demand for a solution as there are limited options for clinicians, as I said earlier, especially after they fail this medical treatment. And the share of the 65 and older population is expected to increase by 5% over the next 30 years. So the aging population is increasing, as you heard earlier. So what does the market look like? Well, when I looked into the global market for rehabilitation wearable medical devices, we were at a total accessible market of 6.6 billion and is estimated to grow to 20 billion in the next 5 years with a CAGR of 25%. Now, looking specifically in the US and at the 65 and older population, this would be about $760 million. And our serviceable attainable market, we wanted to focus here in in Tennessee. And we would probably start where our IP holder is at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. And I'm here in Davidson, and we have some representatives as well in Memphis. So our go-to-market strategy, we would like to collaborate with some of these large international societies, such as the Parkinson's and Movement Disorder Society, as well as the International Essential Tremor Foundation to get connections. Then we want to do a pilot at the Erlanger Hospital System in University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. That's in the works currently. And then we'd like to get this approved. Our class of the FDA would be an FDA Class 1 device, as we think that would help with getting us onto an insurance program. Most of these patients, 65 and older, are on Medicare, a large proportion of that population here in Tennessee. And then finally, we see that how to get it to the patients. The sales channels include pharmacies for the most part and some online sales. So our competition. So this is our device here. And here I'll just kind of walk you through. Obviously, it looks like the text is a little dark. So there's the active dampening component. So there's one device here called SteadyWear that actively dampens tremors, similarly to what we do. There's a Calitrio device that is a wearable. And then here I was just talking about some of the restrictive devices mentioned earlier. So active dampening. 2 devices do this currently. Lightweight. This Calitrio device is also lightweight, but their technology has to do with stimulating the nerves within your hand. So you're getting a tremor reduction, but it isn't an active dampening. This was trying to get under a $200 price point. Right now, after working with the business school at the University of Chattanooga, they were able to approximate that our device would cost about $200, where these other wearables are just much higher, much above that price point. Now, both of these are covered by insurance. So this was kind of just saying insurance coverage. This is the next steps for us. So current status, we have a design patent pending on this dynamic magnetic bearing system. And this is one of our sketches from the patent. So our traction, currently, we just got a preliminary study done at the Marmara School of Medicine in Istanbul, Turkey. There were 4 patients with ET, and on average showed an 85% reduction of tremors. So that was very exciting, but again, small group. So we hope to expand this with our pilot here in Chattanooga. We've prepared to launch sets by making relationships with clinicians, like our program has helped us do some customer discovery, investigate the market, and establish a tentative go-to-market. So this is our team. I'm here in Nashville. My background's in bioengineering. We have some representatives in Memphis as well, at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, here at Meharry Medical College, and also at Kennesaw State in Atlanta. And our founder there, Dr. Kaplan-Oglu, he's a professor of mechatronics, runs the BioAssist Lab, and is at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. So thank you, and let's give confidence back to people with ET by getting them back to their old selves. I'll take questions. And my team is online. I was being in Nashville, I am the only one that could make it today. But yep, so happy to take anything.
Excellent job. Thanks so much for walking through that. So this clearly, as I understand it correctly, is just a symptom management device. It's not addressing the underlying cause. Not being familiar in essential tremors, is this something where it's a progressive disease where it gets worse over time? And do you know if this would exacerbate that or cause any sort of long-term effects on patients that do have these tremors?
Yes, so this was something that was interesting. It definitely progresses over time, but not like a neurodegenerative progression. So it does get worse as you age. Um, would it, potentially wane in efficacy over time? Sure, but this the electro or the microchip on it that's looking for these oscillation differences in amplitude has a certain range that it can get up to. So as long as those tremors stay under a certain range of frequency, hopefully that can help manage to a certain point. And I kind of mentioned too, maybe combination of medical therapy, even if it wound up failing, maybe trying to get them back on a medical therapy while this is going on. But right, definitely on the more symptom management side. I mentioned the Calitrio device. That was one more focusing on trying to stimulate some of the actual underlying cause. But yeah, and this is something too, when some of the clinicians I was talking to, they were like, I'd just love to give something to, one of my older patients that just needs something to help them get over this threshold, just to get them to get going in their mornings, that they don't have to ask somebody for help, or they can just go and do something themselves.
I was just going to ask another piece of this. So this is a device for the hands. Do these patients struggle with tremors in other limbs or parts of the body, or is it just really primarily that if you can address the hands, that will provide benefit?
Yes, right. So depends on the person, but tremors can present in their voice and some head movements. But it seems that when tremors are initially diagnosed, it's usually because they're starting to get upper extremity motions. And usually as the tremors progress, it might affect the rest of their system. So kind of focusing on just the upper extremity tremors at this point. Yeah.
And I guess second, do you have any concerns about whether the patients would be willing to wear this device? Have you tested whether it's pretty comfortable and usable?
Yes, and that is definitely the biggest pain point. So we've tested the device on he's in the mechatronics lab, and so they have a test hand, so we can validate some of this ability. And then these patients were just a small group, had some efficacy, but right now the device is quite bulky in its first kind of iterations. We really want to get it down to something like the design showed. So integrating the technology into like that really nice design that hopefully could be, as comfortable as wearing a watch. But that's really something we're aiming to do, and still kind of working through some designs to get there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a similar question. So I guess they would just be wearing this during their daily use, right? So it's not something they need to wear 24/7.
Right. It's almost like, where would those pain points be? We kind of went back and forth. Okay, most of these people will probably be on, at the end of the career, retired. So maybe focusing more wearing it in the home. And, eventually getting it sleek enough that you can just wear it, with even when you go out. And it would be something as easy as just wearing a wrist brace, but having more of that active dampening happen rather than just being a simple restrictive device.
This is maybe not super important, but does it matter where those sensors and where the stimulation occurs, like the placement of that?
Yeah, good question. I think it definitely does. I think right now, the magnetism is kind of focusing around the hand and wrist area, and one of our competitions, Steadyware, actually has their device sitting right on top of the back of the hand like this to kind of counteract the tremors. So we're kind of also focusing that same area with the magnets, but it would be worn on the wrist. But yeah, that would be kind of like very much focusing on probably the initial onset of some of these tremors, getting those people who, some of the patients like that we've talked to, it's kind of like, they've had tremors for a long time, but it's only now that they're getting older that they're really getting irritated by these tremors. They're getting worse. So something to just kind of manage the hand symptoms seem to be kind of what we're targeting.
Thanks again. It was an interesting presentation. As I mentioned before, my dad has Parkinson's, but for 10 years it was diagnosed as an essential tremor, right? So if you ever want to watch an exercise in patients, is watching one of these patients try to eat soup, right? It's extremely challenging. Just watching is hard to watch, right? Because you lose most of the soup on the way up. So like eating is a really big part of that, right? And if it was only eating that you corrected, like that's huge, right? Because he's retired now, he doesn't do much, and so he probably spends an extra 45 minutes a day just trying to eat, right?
Right.
So I mean I definitely think that there's an application here from the wearable perspective. Like, is it a battery you have to plug it in? Is it connected with anything, or how's that work?
Yeah, exactly. Our IP holder is, he's gone through a lot of different versions, and so there's actually kind of two devices. I presented this one that has a microchip on it to understand the oscillations happening in real time, and then actively stimulate the electromagnetism to correct for that. But we also have one that just has some live magnets on, and just is almost like a passive device that you can slip over. So that one would be, it seemed like actually clinicians like that idea better. We get rid of anything that needs a battery. The electromagnetism would need a battery pack that would be worn a little bit higher up on the arm, in kind of the versions right now. Hopefully getting it more integrated into the wrist wear later on. But exactly, yeah. So right now this would be something that would need a battery or something to power it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bring around the block. And I will attest to this being my screw up. When I dropped all these into the deck, I screwed this slide up. But good kudos to him for not sinking and down here and just continue to go on like we teach other entrepreneurs. Hey, they don't know all the screw ups. You just keep moving forward, explain what you can explain. He tap danced really, really well and still explained everything he needed to explain on that slide. So my bad, but great job. Great job. All right, let's give them all a round of applause again. Okay, so what we're going to do now is have our judges collect their notes and go to this little conference room to the left. It's really more of a sitting area. Mark's going to join you and Sarah's going to join you to help you come to a conclusion. We really appreciate you. And once they're out of the room and doors shut, I'm going to ask all the cohort to come up to here, front, please. And I would like for y'all to, not everybody or anybody or someone speaking on behalf of whoever, to tell us some things you learned during this cohort and things you'll take away as well, and things you want to maybe see even improved. How about that?
I think I have learned how to work with a team and even actually go out and talk to people. Like that was one of the best thing. I was very shy to even go out and do some interviews and stuff like that, and just how to ask like a question on what they are doing and figure out uh, what is needed from that conversation without giving away to reduce the bias was one thing that I learned the most.
Okay. Yeah, I think I similarly kind of learned about you can just ask people for their experience, and people are very excited to give it to you. And that's, when you do scientific research, that's not something you usually have to do. So that was very exciting. And I did learn that there's a science to business, which was really interesting to me. So yeah, that's about it.
Hello, I learned a lot about small things in life or problems, which, like when you start research, seems not small anymore, but actually very big and important for our future to resolve them. So that really opened my eyes to look where there are some opportunities for maybe future products or things which I want to work on.
Yeah, I have a lot more respect for people in business. I think it tends in like the sciences to maybe get more of a bad rap, or we're just trying to get this out there. But there really are a lot of steps to this, especially if you get excited, at least on my side, you get excited about the technology. Oh, let's go make a difference. And it's like, well, there's quite a few steps to get through to get there. And you got to talk to the right people, and But yeah, it's been a great learning experience. This has been great.
I'm gonna echo a little bit what Maggie said as far as how much science there is to business. Bless you. I think the thing that struck me the most was learning how to not get lost in the details. When you undertake a scientific career, you try to learn the intimate intricacies of how everything interacts and works all the time. And I didn't have to do that for this, and it was difficult to turn that off, but refreshing at the same time.
I feel like Spencer stole a little bit of what I was going to say here. Yeah, so thinking like a scientist and thinking like an entrepreneur or someone in the business mindset is a lot different. You have to think a lot broader and also a lot simpler, just not so detail oriented. But I think another thing that I learned was a lot about farming. Just a lot about farming in Tennessee and how passionate farmers are about their work, how much they love it, how multi-generational it is, and what they're trying to do um, to really help our planet be a greener planet through farming as well.
The biggest learning curve for me was definitely the customer discovery process, like going in with a non-bias, not trying to try to like discuss your technology first and learning from the customers first about what their exact problems are, kind of finding, the problem above the noise without the bias of introducing your technology first was like a complete mind shift for me at least. And also for me, the construction of the slide deck very different from an academic environment. And like, oh, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Saved it just for the pitch. And yeah, just like the beauty and creativity of making just the right slide deck with just the right amount of information, just the right storyline. Yeah, it's going to transform how I make slides now from now on.
Great. Thank you all very much. Give another round of applause. I'll go back over there. When you said when you said the about the PowerPoint, all of them, I don't know if you noticed it, but all of them like, oh yeah, that too. Because scientists, I mean, anybody ever made a poster presentation before? I mean, if you haven't seen a poster from a poster presentation, it's every slide you saw right there, but all scientific on one piece of paper, one large piece of paper, but it is just overwhelmingly full of information. And last year, I started teaching a course to UTK, and now it's part of Scipreneur, about how to kind of take those poster presentations and make them more, I don't want to say business oriented, is we're not trying to make them business like, we're trying to make the presentation more business like, because you have an audience when you're pitching your technology. You have a thesis that you're trying to convince someone to potentially give you support. You're looking for research dollars. You have to build a narrative around your entire idea in order to get research funding these days. It's also not just about who has the most disruptive, but who can tell the best story about what their product's going to do, right? So these are the things we're seeing in this kind of blending and blurring of what someone is scientifically and how they can be more business oriented, and how both of those kind of are the same thing when it comes down to it. Are there any questions about the program while we're still waiting and I'm still tap dancing for the judges? Yeah, absolutely.
One who's doing the Parkinson's. So if a patient is following the dosage that this is suggesting, what is, so we were kind of in a conversation, sorry about that, talking about the liability. What if something went wrong with the dosage? They weren't talking to the neurologist, they were just depending on the information that they got. So where's what kind of liability do you have worked into this? Sure. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Happy to answer that. So we didn't delve very deeply into the liability aspects of this, of course. That's slightly beyond the scope, but I think it's a really important question, and we've definitely considered the fact that there there is like that range of like you can take a little and you can take a little bit more that your neurologist prescribes. I think by and large, the technology should not be prescribing anything that would allow for any adverse effects like that. But in the scenario that it does, obviously that would hopefully, you know, maybe we would implement a system that kind of triggers feedback to the neurologist to say, hey, this was far too high and it needs to come down. So I think that is kind of where we are at now with the technology. But it's a great consideration and definitely thank you for bringing it up. Yeah. Just jumped up here. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Can I give you a little bit of feedback on that? I'm a physician.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you,
Yeah.
what would be really cool
Yeah.
would be if you had, you know, obviously you're gonna have physician buy-in.
Mhm.
Physician's gonna see, all right, so these are the potential dosing ranges. And the neurologist is gonna say, yes, I'm okay with it, or no, I'm not.
Mhm.
So it's gonna say preemptively. And I'm the neurologist to this patient and said, you know what, if your device says to increase or decrease, I'm okay with these parameters. If it goes beyond that, I'm gonna put an X on it, you come back and we see me and we'll chat.
Yep.
I think that's how I would do it to get around the line.
Yeah, that's how a lot of those technologies are coming to play with the telemedicine, hospital homes, everything. And that's where AI plays a huge part because it allows, especially in neurology gate, where there's so few neurologists for patients. You need something to kind of help you massage the data a bit to give you the decision points where they are and not having to hunt for those.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I get very involved with each one of the technologies too.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to disconnect. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for the feedback.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Have you thought about other,
Yeah.
I guess, applications beyond just Parkinson's?
Yes. So importantly, this is not, of course, because it's movement based, it is not Parkinson's specific. So we've sort of narrowed our market down a little bit, but we have also acknowledged that it could be opened up to a wider variety of neurodegenerative diseases. So absolutely, I think that would be like an excellent like next step, or maybe in parallel if it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
I think y'all are gonna really push this team to inform.
Do you want to add?
this technology.
Everyone wanted to add something. Thanks for all the questions. Yeah.
To add to that, like I had an interview with one of the physician resident, and she mentioned was sometimes it gets really misdiagnosed as essential tremor, or there is a high range of movement disorders that gets like misdiagnosed in. So with this, you can actually say if it's Parkinson or not, based on the scoring that it is. So when it's a Parkinson, you have a specific profile of this is the dyskinesia, this is the bradykinesia, and this is the movement oscillation that a patient has. And based on that score, you can tell whether, since that was the data that was went into training the data, so you can use that data itself to say whether it is Parkinson or not. What is not is up to you.
Yeah. As a very last
Yeah.
note, I did talk to some pediatric neurologists who were interested in using it for epilepsy. So that's another market that we explored a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Happy to answer more. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So it gives them a suggested dose.
Mhm.
How do they tell the doctor what dose they took? Like how are they?
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's not something the technology can do, of course, just because it's limited by being a movement-based sensor. I think that would be up to the patient to convey that to the neurologist. But again, I think like Brian mentioned and a resident physician has mentioned as well, I think like with the advent of telemedicine, that's a great opportunity for just a quick messaging system of, hey, I want to make sure that this was okay. So yeah. Hope that answered all of your questions. Thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you. And here come the judges. So it looks like we have our verdict. I'll bring Brian up for some last questions before we announce the winner. But I want to say the winner tonight will be presenting tomorrow right before our Venture Forum. And, you know, Carrie, your Venture Forum companies are going to have a little run for their money from some of these companies tonight. They did an outstanding job. And this really gives me a lot of hope. about the future of life sciences in the state of Tennessee and the future because it's right here with a lot of these young people that were presenting tonight. So wonderful job, Brian. Thank you so much to you and to Mark and to the entire team. So I'll turn it over to you.
This is fun. I enjoy this. This is what I love to do. So it's for me, it's barely a job, but thanks for the pay just the same, Abby. It's awesome. I love doing this. Okay, so without further ado, the judges have come to conclusion. They said it was extremely close, as it typically is. Y'all have done a fantastic job. And the winner tonight is Pan, IP2. Congratulations. It was very close, as they said, and we'll provide the feedback in a couple of days. But the feedback was, y'all did an amazing job. Judges, would you like to say anything about their performance that I haven't already said?
I think, you know, all three teams did a great job, and considering where you were 10 weeks ago, like, it's really impressive. So like, just because you didn't win, like, don't take that as like you didn't do a good job. And just from my own perspective on Penn, I thought it was a very tight story, right? The presentation was good, the way you answered questions with confidence. And then also your go-to-market strategy was tight all around. So nice job.
Did everybody catch a
Thank you.
reference?
We are very proud of that.
Okay, we'll give them another round of applause. Thanks to the rest of the cohort who connected online and over here. Let's give them another round as well. And stick going for our judges. Thank you very much. Okay, there is some more food and things outside. There's time for us to socialize, give you a little bit more of your time back. Really enjoyed doing this for y'all. And yet again, we'll be back next year with more programs like this. We're actually elevating these programs, pushing them back into the academic institutions. So we should have 2 or 3 of these programs going every year starting next year, as well as our own Bring Your Own IP accelerator, where you'll be you're working on your own IP. So that could be a next step for y'all as well. All right. Thank you all very much. Again, socialize. We have this place for a few more minutes. We have drinks and food out there, and help yourself. Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Oh yeah, and we need the judges. We can take a picture with the cohort.
You all are from Knoxville?
Yes.
So, were you at, I don't remember seeing any of you at the.
Schultzbrow?
No, I do remember. Schultzbrow.
Okay.
But there was a last week Chancellor's Innovation Fund.
No.
So, are you all even, I mean, it was interesting to me when you all were presenting banana code, because there is a professor at the Institute of Agriculture.
Yeah.
You know.
Is it Wacky?
No, it's.
Okay. Yeah. We've been trying to contact some of them, but at the university, yeah.
All right, judges.
I'm not super tall, so.
You didn't think on height here.
Anyways.
Pam.
thought we.
I think we all. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
It'll be at,
I know the article, you know, they're really like, so I'll see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, really great.